Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. We've got guesses. I'm Nash. Been doing Radio Dead Air for ages. In addition to that, I'm also an IT professional. With me, as always, my producer, Mike Gearman, who also works in IT. Last weekend of the year, in fact. How you doing, Mike?
Not too bad. I've got the new computer set up. Yeah, right over here. Now, people who have noticed the camera gestures before may have noticed that I previously pointed to the old computer on this side. I did not put the new computer where the old computer was for two reasons. One, the old computer is still there. I haven't taken it out yet. But the second reason is I realized if I put the new computer here, I'm wasting less space in the room because that's right next to the door, and I can't put much there anyway because the door has to open.
You got that Cooler Master case. That thing must be like a freaking hernia.
No, it wasn't. I think it actually weighs less than my old computer's case. Not much less, but less. Because all the panels can come off.
Mm.
So I got it in there. Everything seems to be fine with it. With one exception. On the front panel, there's a USB-C that is not working. Now, I don't know if I connected the cable improperly or if it's just, no, I'm just not going to work. I'm going to open up the side panel probably next weekend when I get the chance. Disconnect, reconnect the cables.
I've had those be twitchy too, the front panel USB-Cs. I made my own, but I've had those be twitchy.
Now, that said, the rear panel has two USB-Cs, of which I only use one, because I only have one USB-C device. So it's not ultimately a big deal if the front one doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, it has been a little bit since we've caught up with news because we've been focusing mostly on the build guides for the end of the year. This is a bit related to that because Jesus Christ.
What he's about to talk about will not be in our build guide next year, except possibly in the unlimited build.
The unlimited build, yeah. So we finally have word coming down over the past few weeks about prices we could expect to see for the soon to be announced RTX 5090 and 5080. Those are coming in January at CES, which is not long away. And a retailer leak has given an idea. Now, keep in mind, Jensen Huang has, in the past, people have said that the price isn't the price until Jensen Huang gets up on stage and says what the price is. Right. He has been known to change them on the fly at the event. That being said, the expectation right now, Jiminy Christmas, $2,600 for the RTX 5090. And the 5080 is looking at $1,350, which is closer to the 4090 than the price of the 4080. What the entire fuck?
Yeah. It's a ridiculous price. And again, it's one of those things where what are you getting for this price that makes it worth this price? And the initial spec leaks, to me, don't justify it.
Of course it doesn't. Now the thing is, there's psychology at work in the naming of these devices. And Nvidia has always been aware of that, and it's how they've subtly fucked with people over the years in changing the prices. The 5090, the 90 series, understand that didn't used to exist.
No.
That didn't come into existence until the 3090. Before that class of card was simply called the Titan. There was the Titan, the Titan X, the Titan RTX. It was a Halo product, and the reason it didn't have the same name scheme as the rest of the cards did was he wasn't expecting anyone to actually buy the damn thing.
A handful of enthusiasts, and basic. That was it. A few go out to various sites for testing. And so they can say, hey, yeah, this spec is amazing. Look at this. This is what you'll be getting in 2 generations from now in an affordable card.
Not anymore.
Well, that was the intent, though.
I mean, it was also bragging rights. It was to say we have the fastest video card in the world, undisputed. Yeah. Here it is. Now, by changing it to be part of the regular RTX 50 series lineup, the impression is this is a card you should be able to get. Why wouldn't you get this card? It's the best. You want to get, and
well, it has. If you put a dollar value on it that was reasonable, people would buy it.
It has the psychological effect because when it's a Titan, people are like, "Oh, nobody buys a Titan because
I don't have to get that."
A Titan's not the real top of the line. It was the 1080 and the 28. That's the top of the line. Nobody buys a Titan. Now it's like just the psychology of it. You're looking at it and going, well, 5090 is bigger than 5080, so 5080 isn't top of the line. When technically what's going to happen is the 5080 is de facto going to be top of the line. And even then, even at $1,300, $1,400, the 5080 is sitting at where the Titan prices were years ago. Because that
now you could say a little bit about, inflation and, things get more expensive over time, this much.
It doesn't add up. It literally does not account for.
This is all literally Nvidia wanting just all the money.
And the funny thing about that is, do you know what happened to Intel that surprised the living shit out of them?
They didn't get all the money?
For Intel, the B580 is sold out.
Yeah.
The reasonable $250-ish 1440p video card, 12 gigs of RAM, people could afford it.
Yeah.
Has sold the fuck out.
And the reason for that is because you can play most games on that card.
Yeah.
Are all the settings maxed? No. But
a lot of them can be.
A lot of them can, but most people don't want all the settings maxed because it makes their power bill a little lower.
It also makes the game slower depending on what you're playing. But regardless,
Indeed.
it's they came to the market with a price that was like reasonable that people could expect to pay for, and they're like, Intel cleaned up. I bet even the B570 is going, the B570 is probably going to be, or the B850. No, it's not 5. I'm getting it backwards. It's the 870 and the 850. Yeah, the B850 is probably going to, or 860. I forget which. It's the one that's the slightly cut down version. The $220 one. That one's probably going to sell pretty well too, because that's what the market has been dying for years, is a card that you could play games on. Games that...
the B580 is $380 at Newegg. And that is an amazing price.
And people don't... I mean, $2,600 for video games is insane. And of course, it pushes up the price all along the line. And again, outlets like Hardware Unboxed are truly questioning what you're getting for this ray tracing stuff and what you're getting for all these other features that competition has comparable features and a more reasonable price. This, I know they're technology-wise, they are out ahead of everybody. That's unquestioned. They're always going to have, but it seems to me it's going to be hard to stay the market leader when people can't afford to buy your shit.
Sooner or later, they're going to run out of money to do the R&D if people aren't buying the products. And then they'll go, maybe we could sell something cheaper. It might be too late at that point.
Speaking of, that's a good segue into our next story. speaking of a company that always sold stuff at a premium because they could get away with it until they couldn't, Intel, having recently booted out ex-CEO Pat Gelsinger, now Intel shareholders are
one group of Intel shareholders.
Still, it's a significant group. A group of Intel shareholders are suing Pat Gelsinger and David Zinsner. Gelsinger, it was the former CEO. Zinsner is the current CFO and interim CEO. They're suing them for unjust enrichment based on the fact that under Gelsinger's leadership of the company, Intel had its literal worst day of the market since 1985. Give it a second here. There, it's back. Sorry. Yes, we're aware. Thank you. I saw. It's fine. Anyway. Yeah, worst day on the market since 1985.
Which is pretty bad.
So they are seeking to have reimbursement of Gelsinger's $207 million in compensation. They want that clawed back.
They want that clawed back. That's not 1 year's worth of compensation. They want the entire thing he did for 2021, 2022, 2023 paid back to Intel. Now, I have followed a few shareholder lawsuits over the years. I'm not an expert. I think it's a stretch for them to get all three. I think they're asking because they expect it to get cut down. And if they only asked for one, they would get cut down from the one. But yeah, what they're saying is Intel misrepresented the financial condition and performance of Intel Foundries, which is their chip fabs.
Yeah, and they kept saying they were restructuring and they were going to spin off the foundry and it was going to be, they had a plan. And it was less of a foundry and more of a floundry because they didn't really seem to have a plan for what they were going to do with the foundries to start making money again. They also, for better or worse, probably for better in the long run, but we'll see, completely missed the AI train, which, I mean, how long is that going to run? But they
can put it in the complaint. I expect this lawsuit will take minimum of 2 years to roll out. From start to finish. The filing of the lawsuit last week, to when decisions are finally made. My guess is a minimum of 2 years. I can see good lawyers stretching it out even further.
But it's also
AI may crater by then.
Oh, yes.
At which point they'll have to amend the lawsuit because they'll say, really, we look at all the money we saved by not going into this nonsense.
But on the other hand, there's also things that also get brought up is the Intel 13th and 14th gen fiasco, literally selling a faulty product. How the new Core Ultra series isn't quite playing out like they expected it to. And also, Gamers Nexus pointed this one out. Gelsinger has earned big air quotes on that, $207 million in compensation for that 3-year period, while at the same time trying to claw back stuff like beverages and extras and yogurt and stuff from employees. The complimentary,
That's the kind of thing that when a company starts doing nonsense like that, that I feel that it falls into the category of penny wise, pound foolish. When you're going, we need to cut the budget on things, and you're going, okay, well, we can save $200 by shutting down this part of the commissary, but we're looking at a shortfall of $2 billion. Yeah, well, we can get $200. That's easy.
Yeah, it would have been a whole lot easier to just get back the money that he'd been paid. And fuck, like the whole idea that I mean, we have many problems in America right now with companies and executives and their pay scale, but the way it does not seem to be commensurate to performance.
I mean, I'm going to say it up front, Nash. I could have done just as bad a job as Gelsinger for half the price.
I would a tenth of a price. I would have done it for a tenth, a 20th. I would have been happy to take a 20th of that
why
fuck up
you,
Intel.
You were my friend. Why are you underbidding me? I would have made you a VP.
I mean, it's just stunning in so many flipping ways. So
apparently the stream description still says XCOM.
I fixed it. Thank you.
Okay.
Remember, we are recording this live, and I don't like having to edit this crap out. Thank you.
Sorry.
Let's see here. There. Why is that not? Why is that not working right? Oh well, never mind.
Yeah. So on to our third story, which is actually an interesting little tech story.
This one is actually, man, it has been so long in tech since I have seen someone innovate technology. And I don't just mean, hey, let's strap a bunch of GPUs together and do stupid things with them. Let's not actually create anything new. Let's just do like a really complicated algorithm. That's a thing, right? This is obviously not new, and the theory behind it has been well known, but this is the application of it is very interesting. This is Nvidia's ionic cooling engine, or ICE, that cools computer chips not with a fan, but with generating an electrical field that pushes air through it. So this will keep air moving in your, this is for, obviously for not for desktops and whatnot, but for laptops. Imagine a laptop with no fan vibration or noise.
Now, right now, this would have to be a very low power laptop.
Yeah. Right now, their design can handle designs up to 25 watts, which is what is it? Not ARC. ARM. Yes. Why is my brain fly? Yeah, that's an ARM design, something like or even depending on how they design it, that's a lower powered design for laptops, but still they're trying to scale it up to handle 40 watts.
My question here is, because the article, of course, doesn't go into a great deal of technical detail.
Yeah.
I won't say we've fully cracked heat pipes, but heat pipes are a known thing.
Yeah.
So given that this thing seems like it is about this big.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you have a series of heat pipes taking heat over to a row of them and them all going and get, maybe you wouldn't get 25 off of each. But if you got 15 off of each, and now you've got 6 of them.
Well, they are working they're working on more designs, but I don't understand. I don't know the limitations, and the design itself might not scale that way.
Yeah. That's why it doesn't go into technical details of why it doesn't. I'm actually considering writing the company, going, hey, this just for my own clarification. Why can't you do this?
Yeah, but it's just a matter of it generates an electrical field.
Yeah, I would love to get the letter back saying we didn't think of that. Whoa.
Well, technically it does. It's not an electrical field. It's a plasma field that is generated by the electricity that goes through it. But that alone is just, that is the first in a long time what I would consider an innovation in the design of a laptop. Just eliminating, not trying to like cram a liquid cooler in there, just eliminating another moving part and bringing it down to, well, quieter and easier to, better, more sustainable in this way. Probably a hell of a lot easier to clean.
I would think so.
Because cleaning fans in these damn things, aside from the fact that, you have to disassemble a whole bunch of it, if you can't just blast the air in there unless you're careful, because spinning the fan with the air can damage the fan. This is very no muss, no fuss. I'd be surprised if we don't see what the part I am surprised about is that Apple hasn't moved to gobble this up.
Oh, they may. That may be, Apple's 2025 plan is to buy this company.
I mean, again, we still don't have this out in the wild yet. They're still working on it, but just it's so cool. I how long has it been since I've seen something that's like, I remember when we started using heat pipes and vapor chambers. That's been years ago, but that was like, hey, here's this very obvious idea. Why don't we translate it to computers? It made a huge difference. This is, again, one of those, well, why don't we build this? And it's kind of been long overdue. I would like to see more of this and not, giant data centers that are dedicated to getting information wrong. Call me crazy. But I thought this was super cool. Even if they don't ever get it to, completely work, just the concept alone is really neat. I thought that was cool. I just think they're neat.
So I'm going to say, while that's going on, I did find a demo video where they're talking about, and they showed the laptop, and it actually showed 5 of them in the laptop. So it may be that 5 of it does do the 30 watts. But still.
All right. Now it is time to get to your tech questions. We got a few this week. Let me see how many more came in. Let's see. Let's see. Is it? Okay. Well. All right. Okay. First off, this is from Hakeem. This hello, Nash and Mike. I'm trying to find a new way to be able to wirelessly share my screen between my laptop and my TV, as the Chromecast I was using tends to stutter when I share the laptop screen. Second gen model I've had for about 5 years. I'm currently weighing my options between getting the newest Chromecast model using a wireless HDMI receiver, or just getting another device that can play MKV files, and I'll plug that into the TV. I was wondering which option you think would work best.
Well, I'm going to say the Chromecast is probably the easiest one to do, because you've already got one, you know how it works, and you'll have no setup difficulties with it. Some other options occasionally
discontinuing it, though.
They are?
Yeah, Chromecast is being discontinued.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
they're still selling it now, but
they're selling it for the moment, but they're discontinuing it. There will be no more Chromecasts after The one they have right now, it's the one I have. I'm like, hey, I'll go from Roku and I'll get a Chromecast instead. Well, it's over. They're not doing Chromecast anymore. I know they are replacing the $25 Chromecast with the $99 Google TV streamer. It's a set-top box.
I don't want a set-top box. I'm going to keep using this thing.
Apparently it's going to integrate some of the Chromecast features, but
it'll also be able to show you more ads, is what it'll be.
Yeah, I guess people aren't buying Google TV or subscribing with YouTube very much or whatever.
Well, okay, so I would say pick it up if you want. Other streaming sticks exist. The thing to look out for, and I check reviews, check Reddit entries, etc., is try to find one that doesn't require, doesn't fill your screen with ads and whatever as a side project.
Well, I mean, depending on what you need, you're kind of focusing on here. The HDMI receiver, from what you're saying here, what you need from the device, unless you need other apps or other stuff, you have a device, you want to share your screen from that device to the bigger device. It seems to me like the HDMI wireless receiver would be the most cost-effective replacement. And
although some of them can get right pricey, don't get wrong there.
But comparatively, it will do what you're looking for it to do right now. So it's the Chromecast, while it still exists, is going to be fine. They're not going to, while they might not be making any more of it, they're not going to junk it immediately. It's still going to be viable for a while. And like I said, I got one that had been open box to replace our Roku, because Roku was doing that other crap with their terms of service. And I was like, nope, fuck that. So I moved over I got us a Chromecast instead. I mean, for $30, it's a nice little device.
Indeed.
It does what you need it to do.
And unless you're sitting there going HD, you don't need the HD version.
Right.
Which is $60.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's any other device beyond that, anything more complicated than a Chromecast or an HDMI receiver, you're looking at something like a PS5 or an Xbox or a purpose-built media PC plugged in straight to the to your television set, or some other device that's going to have a whole lot more on it than simply just the capacity to share your screen. And once you've crossed that bridge, I mean, you're already there. Why not just build yourself a media server or something like that? Because you're already approaching it with what you're doing. Now, mind you, I mean, you can probably find a used Xbox or PS5, fairly, simple, affordable, not as affordable as a Chromecast or an HDMI receiver, but, relatively affordable. But if you want the device to itself to be the provider of the MKV decoding and all that, you really can't beat it. It's either the Chromecast or just direct, have a wireless video feed that is a dumb feed, doesn't do anything else. It just clones your screen up on the television. That will introduce a little bit of latency, but not enough that you'll notice. Like, you're not going to be, unless you're trying to game with it or something. But yeah, that's the best. Like, I mean, they're of all the options, Chromecast seems like it's the most plug and play, and the HDMI receiver seems like it lacks flexibility. So, all right, this is from Marcus. Earlier this year, my ISP contacted me saying that as I'd been with them for so long, I was overdue an upgrade on my modem. Now, just side note here. If you have been using a cable modem for a long time, like 5 years or more, things have changed along the way, mainly because they have improved the protocol that sends and receives data along the coax. What is it? Coax?
DOCSIS.
DOCSIS, yeah. DOCSIS is that's data over cable service interface specification. That's data over coax. That is how they've been able to keep existing coax cable in place while increasing speeds. Right now, we are at DOCSIS 3.1. DOCSIS 4.0 is available, but I don't know of any cable provider in America who's adopted DOCSIS 4.0 as a standard. The main advantage of 4.0 is it finally increases the upstream capability, which they've neglected for a long time. So right now it's about 10 gigabits per second, and that's downstream is the max, and the max upstream is 2 gigabits per second. And DOCSIS 4.0 would increase that to 6.
Which would be nice for a lot of people.
Trouble there is if the cable companies not only they have to upgrade their infrastructure, if not the wires, they never want to do that. But if you are not using a DOCSIS 3.1 modem by now, and those started gaining traction around 2016 or so, if you're not using a DOCSIS 3.1 modem, you are overdue for a replacement. Either going through the rental from your cable company if you have no choice, or you should probably buy one of your own and own your own modem. Something I've done and saved me money in the long run, because by the time you get to how long I've been using this modem and the rental fee, it has paid for itself and then some.
Indeed.
Let's see, where did we leave off there? So anyway, my point is, if you haven't had yours upgraded in a while and you're on cable data, contact your cable provider, because they can provide you with an upgrade. It got me thinking it's probably time to upgrade my router as well. I've been shopping around and routers have changed so much since the last time I bought one. I was hoping you'd be able to recommend one. Reading listicles, consumer reviews only make me doubt my choices when I shop. I don't know if I just need a standard router, a router and a range extender, a mesh network, etc. Yeah. My house is 2,050 square feet. I need something to accommodate 12 plus devices. Current plan promises download, upload speeds of 400 megabits per second. Budget is, wow, that is way down. Budget is 200 max. Be willing to stretch it 250 if need be. Only caveat is no TP link. That's fine. We would never recommend them in the first place. Following up on this, what should I do with my old router? I don't want to contribute to tech waste if I can avoid it. So a way to recycle it, can it be repurposed? It's a Netgear Nighthawk AC 2300. All right, first of all, I tend to recommend Asus routers. If not their other stuff, Asus's routers have been rock solid for me in the years I've been using them.
I'll say with the one caveat on this is you do not need to get the Asus Republic of Gamers sub-brand stuff. You're paying a great deal of extra money there for not that money's amount of capability.
Yeah. Honestly, right now, let's see. They have in store right now. Let's see. $200 is stretching it for what you'd need. You shouldn't need to go to 250. Pretty much for your purposes.
I said the other thing, the other big recommending point in Asus's favor. You mentioned, did I need to get a network extender, mesh, etc. Asus's stuff all works really well together. So if you get an Asus router, and then you go, oh, I need an extender for this space. You get an Asus extender. It will pretty much talk to it out of the box, no problem.
A nice one that's available right now that is Wi-Fi 7, which gives you a little bit of future proofing there, is the Asus RT-BE 3600. That's about $200. If I was buying a new one right now, that's what I'd buy. Mine's a Wi-Fi 6. I haven't felt the need to upgrade it. But let me show you on screen here. Not a crazy little device, but it handles 2,000 square feet. Definitely can handle it. It'll be fine. Yeah, it'll cover your house, no trouble. I've had mine covers my house. Mine was the previous version of this. It covers it just fine. It's sitting right there. You shouldn't spend more than most people, unless you have a very super demanding household, you shouldn't spend more than $200 on a router. That should be about the upper limit for most people. But you shouldn't spend less than $100 either.
Because at that point, they're cheaping out on components, especially the local memory on the router, and you get far, far less bang for your buck.
Yes. So that's as far as I also I would look at the comparable level of the Netgear Nighthawk stuff, because that's been surprisingly good from Netgear. So I would put that close to on a par with Asus's stuff. What you'd look for right now is Wi-Fi 7, $200 or less, but more than $100. That's about the sweet spot for getting a good, reliable router that's going to last you for a while. Now, your existing router, there are some fun things you can do with it. For one thing, you can convert an existing router with very little effort into a range extender just by itself. It will pick up the signal and retransmit it. There are ways to do that.
When the brands don't match, this may be sometimes a little harder than when they do match.
It's a little trickier, but if you follow the directions, and there are a lot of directions, it would have to dig down to find out, but just follow some directions, you'll be able to do that. Now this one says AI mesh extendable. Fucking AI. There's what the fuck?
There's no AI in this. It is reading the signal strength and configuring internal stuff to go, okay, is it stronger now? Yes, it's stronger now. Okay, we'll do it that way.
Yeah, we've had beamforming for damn near 20 years now. Anyway, the mesh stuff, don't have to worry about that. Asus does give you a good platform to build on if you need it. I don't think you will. It's a fairly reliable, I've been having trouble with other Asus stuff, which I probably should have remembered that just because it has the same brand on it doesn't mean, it's the same engineering and stuff behind it. But the routers have been rock solid. I have no complaints. I had one die on me, but I also think that was possibly in conjunction with some dodgy power cabling at my place in Illinois.
That can certainly destroy electronics more than you'd think.
Yeah, that was the place that was wired in the 70s and didn't have grounding except in the kitchen. In one point for the one location for the it had safety it had a safety ground in the bathroom, and it had one in the kitchen and one for the washing machine. None of the other outlets in the house were grounded. So that might have had that those houses that were grandfathered past the electrical code still in it. Yeah. So, but Otherwise, I haven't had any trouble with them. The one we've had right now, I had since 20, I want to say 2017 or so. And so that's 7 years. No issues. Still works a treat. Look at the amount of RAM, because the routers are little computers. They're computers with one purpose, and that is to route data. And what enables them to do that is a reliable processor. So as many cores as you can get on them, just like a regular PC, and the amount of RAM. You need at least 512 gigabytes of RAM. Or not gigabytes, megabytes. Because 1 gig of RAM is generous in some of these. 512 megabytes should be the bottom tier for RAM in these things. Especially if you have a lot of devices, more RAM helps you share easier with less hiccups and keeps consistent speed. So this one's not a bad one. It is the RTBE 3600 Wi-Fi 7. It's going for about $200 right now. Might be able to find a deal. So just whatever you want to look for Wi-Fi 7, whatever you get, because you don't want to go in older platform stuff.
Oh, by the way, there's another feature that some routers are rolling out now, and that is a separate you know how there's most routers have a guest network, and sometimes a kids network. Some of them are rolling out. We're going to have a separate Internet of Things network, which might be something that could be useful, because then you can isolate those Internet of Things devices from the rest of your network. Of course, we recommend you don't buy those things anyway. So
this one is from Steven. He says, you mentioned how it's hard to match up modular power supply cables because everybody uses their own pinout. What's a good way to actually measure the voltages coming out of the PSU so I can double check the cables are correct? Well,
the multimeter.
You'll need one of these. This is a multimeter, and you will need to okay, first of all, you'll have to determine all right, the problem we're talking about here is modular power supplies. Wonderful innovation in computers. Instead of having just this one big octopus cable coming out of the computer's power supply, they split it up to little plug-in things, and you only plug in the power cables you specifically need. If you only need one string of SATA power, you just plug that one string in. If you only need one power connector for your video card, you just plug in the one. The trouble comes in when there is no industry standard for those power cables. Not even
there is of course the industry standard for the business end of the cable that plugs into the cards and the motherboards and etc., because those have to match.
Right.
But because it's all bundled together on the far end, it's like, no, whatever order we want to put them in is fine, because this end is fine.
Yeah, what happens is, because they're changing the pinouts on the part that plugs into the power supply, but not the part that plugs into the video card and the your drives and whatnot, is that potentially how that plug is configured, you might be sending where if you use the wrong cord from a completely different power supply, plug it into there, it might be sending 12 volts down a line where it's expecting to see a ground connection. That's good. Yeah.
And this happens, of course, not just between power supplies from different manufacturers, but between power supplies from the same manufacturer, different models.
Yeah.
Now, the same model family might do this. For example, if I got a Be Quiet 1200 watt power supply and a Be Quiet 1000 watt power supply that had the same generation on them, I would be more confident that those cables matched up, but I would still check.
Yeah. What you'll need to do is, number one, you'll have to determine which of the connections in that output plug is your actual ground. And with the multimeter, you would connect the black lead to wherever the ground is. And I guess a good way of doing that is with it unplugged, put the other lead, the red lead, over on the ground connection. Don't plug it into the wall. Just take the plug that comes from the power supply and hold the one of the leads against the ground connector on that plug. And then the other end, you go through and find out which one of the two has a continuity connection between the two of them. Then you'll know which pin in that connector is ground. And that's a quick way immediately right off the top, without having to plug it in, without having to turn it on, without having to jumper the power. That's a very quick way to find out if something is wrong, because you will quickly find out if you have a continuity to ground in a connector you're expecting to see 12 volts on. That's a problem. That means it's already screwed up.
Now there is another way. Okay, so as I said, the cable on the business end, the motherboard end, you know the pin out there.
Yeah.
You can take your multimeter and go, okay, I'm on pin 1 on this end of the cable, which is supposed to be whatever voltage it is. And you go to pin, and you find out where that is there. And you go, okay, that's connected. So this number is this. And then you just make your chart.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could, that if you want to be absolute to know what's going to where, you can do that. But the problem is, the way of doing
that's if you have the cable that matches. If you don't have the cable that matches, then yes, you've got to go through on the power supply.
Yeah, the way of doing it without having to plug anything in and finding out an incorrect ground connection, that is the surest way of doing it without damaging anything. If there's no power flowing through it, there's no chance of anything blowing up.
Indeed.
So the simplest way of doing it is just look for incorrect grounds. That will tell you now that's not going to be absolute, but it will give you a good clue that cable should not be. Yeah. The best way of doing it is, honestly, unless you know which cables came with, and unless the cables, which I don't know why they don't do this, the cables themselves should be labeled.
Well, I'll tell you the reason they don't do this. It would take extra time and cost money because you'd have to QA the labeling process.
Yeah, that's another problem here. They don't label them, so you don't know which model goes to what, and that's stupid and dangerous. But that's the state of the industry right now. Okay, let's see. We have two more. This is from Vec. Happy New Year's, Nash, Mike, and sort of floofy animals. Thanks for answering my last mail, but I forgot I also had this question in the background. My Logitech G29 wheel, its accessories, and my Logitech G600 mouse have gotten some issues that started up a while ago before I switched to Windows 10 and have gotten worse over the years. Things like unintended double clicking, buttoning, rolling, lights that just stop functioning and restart randomly. Gears on the stick engage and disengage multiple times per second. Pedals randomly switch between push, increases input value. I'm guessing some of this is driver issues. Most of this is probably wear and tear. Has been using the wheel for longer than my terrible memory can remember. This is my second mouse of this type that I bought. Was already new old stock when I bought it 5 years ago. While I have no hope for getting another similar mouse, I would like to know what sort of brands to look for and what I should avoid for input devices. Are there differences I have to look out for between controller, mouse, and device manufacturers, and for what reasons? Mostly looking for mid-range parts and brands. Controllers are one of those things that you definitely get what you pay for. I know this from experience. I've been messing around with my flight stick and throttle setup. The big problem with most of them is friction, and you're experiencing that currently right now. With most controllers on the lower end of the price range, there are two parts rubbing against one another at some point that are sending the signals that are the indication. And the cheap way of handling that is you just dab on a bunch of grease and you leave the parts grinding against each other until eventually they wear out and they're done. They're not devices that are intended to be repaired, replaced, Then you move up a little bit down the lane. And speaking of, this is something I just got for Sarah for Christmas. Is one Christmas present I was able to get her. A lot of people have been experiencing this with Nintendo's Joy-Cons. You get Joy-Con drift, and they can't seem to solve it. And it's because of a friction breakdown in how they designed those joysticks on the Joy-Cons. The slightly higher tier of how to do that is something called a Hall effect, HALL. It's instead of using devices that rub against one another, a Hall effect uses a magnetic field to generate the signal. So using a Hall effect joystick, there's much less friction involved because, while this joystick will still move around and whatnot, and it'll have to be, there's spring tension and whatnot. The main part, that the sensor that communicates stuff, there's no friction there. There's no touching. It's just a magnetic field that transmits the. So that's what you want to look for going up higher. You also want to look for something that will allow you to disassemble and repair easily. Because with controllers like this, if they're ones you want to keep, you want to be able to take them apart. You want to be able to work on them because, you're going to have to be able to fix them at some point. I would say anything in about the $200 to $300 level for controllers that you're looking at like this, you're not going to be able to, I know that sounds really expensive, but we're talking about specialized controllers that not everybody uses, that like the HOTAS flight stick, not as popular as it once was anymore. The wheel controllers, not as popular as it once was anymore. That is up to about $300. These are devices that will last for a while, but they are made to fail. They are not made to be repaired. They're only made to be replaced. Let me look at the G29 wheel. G29. Let's have a look at you. And this is about $300. Yeah, G20. The G920/G29. Yeah, and this is, like I said, about $300. You would need to start going higher than that for some of the more specialized companies. And there are more specialized companies. Once you start getting to about the $500 controller range, that's stuff that's actually made to be fixed and will last, potentially outlast the game itself, whatever game you're playing. It's it's just the parts themselves there's a lot of plastic involved. There's a lot of plastic gears involved, which if anyone has ever had to try to work on an old Mac floppy disk will testify. After a certain point of time, those are fucked.
They're just gone.
Yeah, because it's plastic, and plastic as a material, even if you don't, that's the really crappy thing about building things out of gears, especially out of plastic, is even if you don't do anything crazy with them, even if you take very good care of it and don't use it a tremendous amount, even if it's just sitting up on a shelf, some designs of plastics just go, I'm done, and give up. Or if you happen to know anything about Transformer toys, look up gold plastic syndrome, which is just heartbreaking shit if anybody wants to be a collector of those things. So in this price, unless you're willing to shell out a lot more than what you've spent initially for these devices, this is about as good as you're going to get. There's nothing I could really recommend to you unless you want to start spending like $500 or more of that. As far as the mice go, I have had really good luck with my G502X. This is a Logitech mouse. It might not be exactly what you're looking for. Let me see compared to the G600. Oh, and I do want to point out this wing thing. I added this on myself. This is not actually part of the mouse. Oh yeah, the G600. Oh, that's right. It's an MMO mouse. Oof. Well, crappity. Yeah, that's very different than what I'm using. Geez, those. I think Sarah's got one of those. In fact, that's the mouse that's got all the buttons and stuff on it. I do know that the G502X I have, I can take this apart fairly easily. There's no glue. There are no snaps. It is mostly screws that disassemble this. And the reason I've taken it apart is because when you have a cat with hair like Grady, it gets wrapped around the little axle of the wheel here, and the wheel starts sticking, and it doesn't spin anymore. So you have to open it up and tear out Grady hair. It's really annoying. As far as replacements for that, it'd be nice if they would have something. But again, let's see what the price range for those are. Yeah, they finally stopped production of it in this year. Yeah, those are going for a fuckload of money right now. At least with the mouse, you may have a way to fix some of that if you can get it. Let me see. Is there a G600 disassembly? If you're willing to take it apart and put it back again together, yeah, there are teardowns for it. There's switch repair. The quick way to fix with that is to use contact cleaner on it, electrical contact cleaner. I recommend Deoxit is the brand. It's a little hard to come by. You will find some. There's a no-name brand you could find at like Home Depot and Lowe's and whatnot. But what you want to do is you want to get in there, and at the clicky parts, the buttons themselves, you want to put a little tiny bit of Deoxit in there, and then just work the buttons a bunch. And that will quite often bring it back to life. Because one of the big points of wear here is not that the switches themselves have died. It's that there is oxidation and there's corrosion and crud builds up in tiny little bits in that switch. The mouse is still good. You just clean out that gunk and it'll work again. I've had that experience before with the mouse that I had preceding this one. So there are teardown instructions for it. Let me see. What do they need to do? This is also a bunch of screws, which is good. Screws are good.
Because it's not snapped together or glued together, and you can actually repair it.
Yeah, and there are guides on how to do it. But yeah, oh, okay, I can show you right here. I've got a good picture of the inside, and I can show you exactly where the Deoxit would have to go. Let's see. If you look there on either side of the wheel, there are those two black rectangle looking things right there. And there's also a little gray rectangle right in the middle. Those are the switches. That little gray part, that is the switch. That's what clicks down. And you would need to find an opening in there. And don't use, there are two kinds of ways to get Deoxit. There's a big old spray can, and then there's a little vial with like a brush and a dripper. That's what you want for this job. It's also a lot cheaper than the big can. You get it in there, you work it, you click the switch a bunch of times, wipe off the excess, put it back together, and check it out. You can probably test it without putting it back together from the look of this thing. because you don't need to disassemble it very far to get at those switches, which is nice. So that's the best I could tell you. Hopefully that helps. All right, we got one more tonight. Was this the person who didn't want their name used? Because I'm just going to chance not using it right now because I don't think they wanted it used. Okay, this is about RAM. Is CL30 versus 40 worth the slight price increase difference? I'm having to stretch my money as much as possible, see if I can squeeze in an N64 style Bluetooth controller. I only have 284 in available funds on Amazon. For RAM speed, will you notice the difference between CL30 and CL40 timings? Now, what we're talking about here is DDR RAM has, it's not just the speed rating. It's not just like 5600 or 6000 or 6400. There's also the timings at which each interval, it's the clocks go around at which each part of the RAM interacts with each other part. Kind of think of it like a Swiss watch with the different gears. And the CL30 and 40, those are the size of the gears. The smaller the number, the faster the overall workings inside the RAM tend to be. The question is, would
does
the
it
30
matter?
versus, yeah, how much does it matter? Interestingly enough, Jay's 2 cents just did a video about this like 2 days ago. And surprisingly, not a ton with DDR5. If we're talking 2 sticks of the same clock speed, 6000 versus 6000, the CL30 is faster, and you will notice a little bit of a frame rate difference. But the difference is not huge. We're talking a couple of percentages, and in some cases, margin of error.
Whether you're looking at the fire or not will make more of a difference than timing.
My gut instinct is to go with better timings out of the box, not because you're getting the best, it's a super fast. It's just less fucking headache to deal with. In theory, you can try if you're willing to go into your BIOS and screw around and go with little intricate tiny settings. In theory, you could probably tune your RAM to run at a faster timing speed, because that is a setting you can change. Some RAM will accept it, some RAM won't. It's just, when it says CL30 on it, it's rated to go at that speed.
And this is something we've talked about in the past with memory and chips. It's basically bin testing. So then when they comes off the line and they test it out, they goes, okay, this passed the test to be CL30. It goes in the CL30 bin. This did not pass the test to go be CL30. But it did pass the CL40. It goes in the CL40 box.
No.
It could be the same exact memory, and maybe it just missed that test by a little bit, or maybe it missed it by a bunch.
Or in some cases, a lot, especially with DDR5, all you need to do is be willing to do the trial and error to tune it out and get the tunings right. And sometimes it will involve tweaking the settings on your CPU power outlet, your was the VSOC, the voltage that goes to the system on a chip that controls the memory inside your CPU. You can increase that a little bit, and it will give you more stability if you're running at different timings. In my estimation, it's less to freaking have to worry about if you buy it with better timings. But that said, I mean, if you could get something closer to like CL32 or CL34, you might be able to find a deal like that. You wouldn't have to go all the way down to CL40, but you'd be able to get something, reasonable. Another thing to keep in mind is you don't mention if this is 2 sticks or 4 sticks. If it's 4 sticks, that is adds an additional layer of problems because 2 sticks of RAM in a system are able to clock higher and tune better than 4 sticks. It's just it's a question of physics, extra latency, extra electricity, all of that stuff. 2 sticks, okay. Then probably CL32, CL34. You might be able to get a deal on that, and it's going to be closer in performance, negligible wise, to CL30. But at a certain point,
and again, we're still talking. If you get to say CL34, you're talking maybe 1% difference there.
Yeah, it also doesn't tend to show up until you start, at least in gaming, until you start heading toward higher resolutions like 4K and stuff. In other applications like compilation work, rendering, video editing in particular, it can show up to some extent, but not enough that it's going to drive you. I mean, it's like going to be like, oh no, I should have gotten the bigger. Not really. Like, it's there. They make it available, and it does have an impact. It's just not. Think of it this way. If it had such an incredible impact to make the CL40 stuff intolerable to work with, they wouldn't be selling the CL40 stuff. You know, it's not the super blazing fastest thing on the market, but it exists, which means it's not the worst thing. They wouldn't sell it if there's a point to it. All right, I think that is going to do it for us for this week. Folks, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight for Tech Q&A. I hope you had a good time. Hope you learned some stuff. Hope that we helped you out with some things. We will be back next Saturday, unless things blow up again, at 9 p.m. Eastern. If you have tech questions for me and Mike, you can always send those to requests at radiodeadair.com. Until then, for Mike and myself, we'll see you next time. Good night, folks.